What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the first Descendant today, we are looking at the ultimate submachine gun Thunder Cage. Most likely the first ultimate weapon that most players will come across in the game. For this reason, it's very good that it is as powerful as it is because it pretty much gives a lot of new players in the game and even veterans a very powerful option for mobbing content that they might not realize is as good as it actually is. Now, at this point in time in Season 2, Thunder Cage performs exceptionally well in the seasonal objective Void Vessel, and so it's easily a top 3 pick for me as your weapon of choice to take into this content because it helps you to deal with the enemies who have shields on them that need to be cracked by weapon fire very easily. One of the reasons why that is the case is because of the unique ability of the Thunder Cage. So let's go ahead and have a look at that first. So when we look over here, we see that the ability is called Overcharge. Maybe it's better if I just move my face. And this says when defeating an enemy, the defeated enemy has a set chance to discharge electric shockwave, which deals additional damage to nearby enemies. Now this has a trigger rate of 100%, and this is the example of why this weapon is superior, at least from this perspective, to something like Python. I said it in my Python build video that the chance of the effect actually going off being 40% is one of the reasons why Python is kind of ass, but this is definitely not the case with Thunder Cage, and it's a 100% proc rate, which is really good, which then has a range of 5 meters and essentially produces this mini AoE that hits all the enemies around. This means that when you crack the shield of one enemy, this basically spikes and explodes and basically cracks the shields of all the enemies around them, which is why this performs so well. Now, when it comes to building your Thunder Cage, there's 2 schools of thought here. With the release of modules over the last couple of months, we've seen non-crit based builds for weapons and Descendants becoming a very powerful alternative in cases where it's not possible for you to stack crit as much as you want. So in this video, I'm actually going to give you 2 different builds for Thunder Cage. I'm going to give you my personal build that I run, which is a crit based build, but then I'm also going to give you a non-crit based build if you're one of those people that wants to run it non-crit. So first things first, we're going to start with the crit based build. And just looking at the base stats of this weapon, we can see that we start with a 20% critical hit rate and a 2 times multiplier. And that is why I builded crit. That is kind of like the cutoff for me. Anything that's 20 and above, I automatically build crit without asking any fucking questions, because that is just a very good baseline to start from. We also see that our weak point damage is only 1.2 times, and it's for this reason that I usually say that if you want to shoot weak points, you should go for Python. If you want to crit, you should go for Thunder Cage. So starting us off, we start with the usual, I would say, 3 mods that go on pretty much every gun, and that is action and reaction and rifling. These 2 over here. Now, these 2 basically give you some decent gains in terms of firearm attack with a slight penalty to your recoil from action and reaction, which is really not that bad. And then we couple it with the last piece of the tripod, which is a fire rate increase mod, just called fire rate up. Where are it? It is right down here. So fire rate up, this gives us a 25% increase to our fire rate. So that means our fire rate is sitting at 888, and that feels really good for a submachine gun. You want submachine guns to be fast and snappy and essentially spit their load out super fast, and that's definitely what this setup does for you. Next, we want to just give ourselves some additional ammo, because one of the shortcomings, I would say, of Thunder Cage, and it's not Thunder Cage's fault, it's submachine guns in general, but it has a very small mag size, so it's only sitting at 26. Now, that means that because it is a low base, we're not going to be able to increase it drastically, but we do have to increase it some, since 26 bullets is just, just not enough. So we're actually going to slap in 2 weapon mods, right? So we're going to go expand weapon charge over here. That's going to give us 49% of additional ammo, and that bumps us all the way up to 38 bullets. Then I'm also going to throw in something called concentrate support ammo, this one over here. This gives us another 30% of rounds, plus it gives us a small bump to critical hit damage of 6.5%, and that ends up at 46 bullets in the mag, which is really good. We're basically sitting at almost double what we started from, and this is very comfortable. This is a decent amount of lead to spit out before you reload, and this is usually good to essentially mow down a whole group of enemies or dent a yellow bar in, I would say, rather sufficiently. At this point in time, we need to start concentrating on getting our crit and our crit damage up, right? Because this is a crit-centric build, okay? So one of the easiest ways to do that is to go after the 2 blue mods. So one is better insight. This gives us critical hit rate. And then better concentration. This gives us critical hit damage. But both of these are going to be significant jumps for us. We're going to go up to 27.8% critical hit rate and a 3.6 times multiplier. And it's starting to look really, really sexy right now. At this point in time, we're going to also just add in something called concentration priority. Concentration priority gives us a huge jump of critical hit damage, 120%, but does negatively affect our reload ever so slightly, which means we now go to a 1.8 second reload on a mag. Now, as soon as it starts getting to about 2 seconds, that's usually where it starts hurting, you know, my my brain. But 1.82 is okay. I would ideally love it to be a little bit shorter, but we just don't have the mod space for it specifically in this crit-based setup, so it is a pain that we're going to have to live through. Then we are also going to add in something called edging shot. Now, edging shot is kind of like the companion piece to concentration priority, where concentration priority increases your critical hit damage by a lot. Edging shot increases your critical hit rate by a lot. 43% is a huge amount. Now, what it also does is it unfortunately minuses our firearm attack by 15%. But I feel in the overall feel of this gun and the power level of it, this is okay, because the point is we are getting a decent bump to our crit, with us sitting now at 36.4%, and we're sitting at a 6 times multiplier whenever we crit. This is huge, and it means that when you do crit, it is going to hit like a fucking Mack truck. So that's really good. And then we have one more space open, and that we keep for a yellow mod or a gold mod, depending on how you see color. So sweeping squad is really good for us here, because what this does is it says when defeating an enemy, your firearm attack is increased by 10.6% for 5 seconds at a 100% chance, and this can stack 3 times. So you can get a maximum of like 31.8% increase to your firearm attack if you keep this up and you keep all your stacks up. Now, since this is a mobbing weapon, you should have no problem with keeping those stacks up. So this right here is my crit-centric version of the build, and pretty much how 99% of the time I run my Thunder Cage. Next up, should you feel like being a contrarian and playing against the stream, of course you can also set your weapon up to be non-crit based. This is then the point that what we're going to do is we're going to try and stack raw power, and we're not going to necessarily focus on weak point, because again, weak point just is not strong enough from a base on the Thunder Cage to really reward you enough by slapping in modules to push that up. So we're just going to go straight forward for raw damage, and that also means that in a way this plays easier, because you don't have to try and hit weak spots, anything like that. And I mean, you can still do that and it's to your benefit, but you can pretty much just spray and pray and just hit fucking enemies all over, and it's gonna, you know, jack them up. So we're gonna start this off very similar to how we started the other build. We're gonna go action reaction. Guess what? We're gonna go rifling reinforcement. And then you guessed it, we're going to go fire rate up. So our starting 3 mods are exactly the same. Now we are also going to deal with exactly the same issue that we deal with the previous one, which is a small mag size. So we're going to add 2 mag options. We're going to go expand weapon. And then instead of using the other one which we used, which increased our critical rate ever so slightly, we're actually going to increase, we're going to add something in called weapon tuning. Weapon tuning gives us 30 rounds per magazine, similar to the other mod that we used for the crit base, but this doesn't give us a crit hit damage increase, but rather a very measly small 1% increase to firearm attack. But hey, I'll take it. Now at this point in time, since we aren't building crit, we are going to start focusing on some damaging options. Now, basically, Thunder Cage is seen as an electric weapon, because the electric discharge, the explosion is electric, so it makes a lot of sense to just lean deep into that whole mechanic, right? Does it mean that you can't play other elements on Thunder Cage? No, absolutely. I mean, it's your weapon, do whatever you got to do, like you do you, boo. But I feel like electric works really well with this setup. This is, for instance, a weapon that also pairs exceptionally well with a character like Bunny, whereas you, I'm sure you've seen in the footage in the background, you essentially use Bunny's 3 to deal with the enemies that become available as soon as you crack their shields with the Thunder Cage. So it's like a companion piece. It works really well. It's pretty much how I run it all the time. So we're going to lean into electric quite hard. That means we're going to go electric enhancement. What this does is it adds an electric attack of 30% on top of our damage. So now we're also dealing this damage additionally. That allows us then to also put in something like electric priority. And electric priority is going to increase our electric attack by 50%, but it is also going to give us a reload time modifier of -30, meaning now we reload slower. Okay. And then last but not least, we are going to also go for a gold mod or a yellow mod called Electric Conductor. This says that when attacking enemies inflicted by electrocution, firearm attack plus 26%. So this is a really, really good damage package for us, because this is going to allow us to essentially, once we start wading into the enemies, start electrocuting them, you're hitting them with your own bunny ability, stuff like that. If they aren't dying immediately to your 3, they are now considered electrocuted, and then your gun is just going to deal a whole lot more damage to them, which is why this works so well as well, paired again with bunny against yellow bar enemies, because those tend to not die immediately to your 3rd ability, but they fucking will die immediately to a spray from this shit. So it works really well. For our second last modification, we can take charge amplification. Since we don't care about crit, this is going to give us a nice fat bump to our firearm attack, but it is going to crush our critical hit damage modifier. But that's okay. We don't really care about that right now. So this is all good as we have it set up here. I'd like to run, and you can absolutely consider this a flex slot for yourself. I like to, in this particular case, I like to run a mod called Recycling Genius here. Recycling Genius basically increases your reload speed, so you reload faster, right? I don't know, I always don't know how to say that so that I get my point across. So by putting in reload time modifier, it modifies your reload speed to reload quicker. I think that's probably the safest way that I can say it. But you can see the effect here. We're sitting at 1.82 seconds of reload, and when we put this mod on, it's going to drop us down to 1.4. Now, ideally, in a perfect world, that is where I want this weapon's reload to be. 1.4 feels super, super good. It's smooth, and you basically spray out and then quickly reload as you just roll or duck around a corner, come back out and send some more lead downrange. It feels really fucking good. It feels the way a sub should feel. It's amazing what difference that 0.4 seconds makes, but hey, it is what it is. But this is my non-crit setup then. So both of these will do you well. Again, like I said, just for clarity's sake, I run this pretty much, the only way that I run Thunder Cage is this way, but I do have this set up as well. And every once in a while, you know, when I'm feeling frisky and I've had a few too many beers, then I kind of like dip into the non-crit hose as well. Now, lastly, let's just quickly talk substats. I would have probably liked to have 2 Thunder Cages, and I don't know, one day when I'm bored enough, I might actually farm up a second one so that I can set them both up, one as crit and one as non-crit, and actually have the substats support both. But in this particular case, you can see that my substats support the crit version of the weapon, because that is the one that I primarily run. So I have firearm attack on there, I have firearm critical hit rate, I have firearm critical hit damage, and then for my 4th mod, I have rounds per magazine. That means that when we look at the final stats of the weapon, we're just under 40% critical hit rate, and we're just basically under 6.8 times multiplier when we do crit, and we're sitting at 49 rounds, which is almost 50. It's nice and round. I love it. So this is the substats that you would absolutely use if you are running the crit version. If you are fully committed to the non-crit life, then that opens up 2 slots here, and you could potentially get rid of critical hit rate and critical hit damage and put in, I don't know, weak point damage or any other nonsensical bullshit like that you want to throw in there. Colossus damage, I don't know, whatever. But these are the substats. I've had these pretty much since, I guess, like the very first week that the game was available, and I've just never changed it because I got super lucky. I think I got it in like 3 rolls, and I just never changed it since then. But yes, this is the Thunder Cage as it is right now. There's a reason why the Thunder Cage meme exists, and it's because this weapon is, to this day, one of the most efficient weapons packages that you can take into a thing. Do you get bored of it over time? Fuck yeah, just like you do with any other gun. But the fact of the matter is, when you absolutely positively gotta kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitute, Thunder Cage will do it for you. that's it for the video. That's it for the build. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for both builds. Thank you very much for watching. As always, the support has been phenomenal these last couple of videos, and you guys are the ones that are doing it, so I cannot express my unending love enough. If the day hasn't arrived yet, we must be getting close to it now. So Merry Christmas, have fun with your families, all the best, eat a lot of food, drink a lot of beer, or whatever you like to drink. I'll see you real soon, and as always, fucking cheers.